Grant must be celebrating his win.
No,
He got Yard of the Month.
oh, no. Something the theater shows opened up or something. I think he's one of the main characters or whatever you want to call them. Actors, I guess.
Yes, indeed.
All good. Thank you.
I have a problem. Last meeting, I had two packages of books in, and I only showed one, and I can't remember which one it was. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Solved, problem solved.
Yes, sir.
I'll order this special meeting of the City of Navasota, February 9th, 4:30 PM, City Hall. Remarks of visitors.
No, sir.
Item 3, discussion on a presentation regarding tax increment reinvestment zones, or TERS, and a proposed development agreement in the Navasota TERS.
Mayor, excuse me, do we need to make a note that Councilman Holt is not here, present?
Oh, well, we do not, well, let's see, we do have a quorum, but.
We do, but with an absent.
Mr. Councilman Holt is not present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As a result of the TERS board meeting that we had before our last council meeting, when the TERS board approved the TERS agreement for the Altamira development, a couple of the residents that were in the audience at the time asked me some questions, and then later after that meeting, a couple of you all asked me questions about the background of TERS and the history, and so we thought it would be a good opportunity to just kind of take a step back and talk real quickly for those that may not remember or maybe have never heard of what a TERS is before tonight's action item. Just do a real quick basic overview of what a tax increment reinvestment zone is and what it's not, and offer any background with regard to how that came to be in Navasota. So I've got a PowerPoint slideshow we'll go through real quickly to talk about the elements. We also have representatives from Hawes Hill who are here tonight. That is our TERS administrator, as well as Mr. Diostato, which is our development services director, and Carrie as our legal counsel, that both were involved and were here when it was developed, in case there are questions that predate my presence here with the city. So we'll kind of go through a recap of what a tax increment reinvestment zone is, how that increment is calculated, where those dollars go, what they can be used for, understanding the roles of the city council and the TERS board, and if there are any other participating taxing units. In our TERS, there are not, but we'll talk quickly about what could be in some TERS. We will talk about the eligible projects, some guardrails and transparency expectations, and how our TERS number 1 is set up with the project plan, the costs, and the boundaries. So with that said, just as a simple definition, a TERS is basically a geographic area in which an elected body, the city council in this case, wants to encourage development and growth. And so several years ago, the city of Navasota decided that much of the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, that is undeveloped currently, they wanted to try to incentivize growth in that area. And so they established a platform that said this is going to be our TERS. And they said that going forward, 50% of the tax increment, we'll define that in a second, will get contributed into the TIF, the tax increment fund, for eligible public infrastructure projects. And so that came to be, and it became an incentive for developers. And as you all know, recently we've had a developer that has entered into an agreement with the TERS board, and and that is on the agenda for tonight for the city council to consider, and is proposing to build a subdivision in there, which will increase, obviously, the value of that land. And so it's important to understand that a TERS doesn't create a new tax. It's not like a MUD where you have a whole separate entity that's taxing residents separately. It is a portion of the participating taxing units already established tax rate. So whatever the tax rate is for Navasota, because we are the participating local government unit, it is a portion of whatever you adopt for the next 30 years. Well, it's not quite 30 years anymore. It's been in existence for a couple of years, but from the date of starting for 30 years, it was a committed 50% of the adopted tax rate for the increased value will go into that fund to provide for eligible projects. And as I said there, it's a dedicated fund. The projects must meet the eligibility criteria. We're going to go into some of those things, and it ends on a specific date, 30 years from the date that you all created it. So I think the next step. So the way that gets calculated, and I gave you all a printout there to kind of go along with, the way that gets calculated is the year that you created it established the base year. Whatever the value was of that land that was in the geographic footprint of the TERS became the base value. And then for the next 30 years, however much that value increases becomes what is referred to as the increment or the TERS increment. And so even without development, the likely scenario is there would be some increment because taxable values go up just because property values go up over the course of time. When you have development, though, it goes up drastically because it goes from raw land, unimproved land, oftentimes with a ag exemption that was on it and was holding the value relatively low, to now a developed subdivision with homes that have a retail value on them. And so there's substantial growth in there. So your increment becomes quite large. And then 50% of the tax that's collected at the city level gets put into this tax increment fund or TIF for funding eligible projects. In our case, the developer will go in now after these agreements are in place. They will install public infrastructure, water and sewer lines to serve these homes, streets and sidewalks to serve these homes and these residents, and those become eligible projects that might be reimbursable under the TERS. In this particular development, this developer is also going to have a public improvement district or a PID. So it's not just as straightforward as all of the infrastructure projects are going to be reimbursed by the TERS, because as you all know, there were some offsite improvements. There were a lot more than just a standard go in, build the infrastructure and it's ready to go. There was offsite improvements. There was an additional water plant that's going to be needed. And were some other extensions of service lines that are going to increase the cost to develop it. And so this one is going to be a PID and a TERS combination. And the developer will work with our PID administrator as well as our TERS administrator to separate those costs out, make sure that they only go into one bucket because they can only get reimbursed once, obviously, for them, and to make sure that they use the funds appropriately, because some projects may or may not be eligible in all of them. We can't necessarily go into all the details and the minutia of how a project becomes eligible in one or the other. But that will get navigated through the course of the next several years to make sure that the projects get divided into the PID or the TERS for reimbursement once value is placed on the ground. And so you see there the little graph, you have a base year that sets your base value, and if that, for instance, was $50 million, and later at some point down the road during the TERS, the value of that land is 80 million, well, then your difference is $30 million, and that's your tax increment. And then so it's the 50% of the tax that was generated on that $30 million of growth is eligible for reimbursing for those public projects.
And that 50% is arbitrary.
That is an arbitrary. It was established by you all when you created the TERS. I have seen TERS smaller than that. I've seen TERS all the way up to 100%. The last city that I was in had one TERS that had a 100% participation with a contracted, negotiated cost of service, which was a percentage that kind of got kicked back. And so it was there's a lot of different ways to set them up. You all chose to just do a flat 50% of the city's tax rate. You could have also approached the county, the school district. They might have chosen to kick in some and have that. We did not do that here. Some places do, some do not. It's pretty straightforward this way. It's the city, and the city is the one that's providing the incentive. It's not uncommon at all. And so you see some examples there of eligible projects that can be funded by a tax increment reinvestment zone: streets, sidewalks, trails, mobility, drainage, stormwater, detention, water, wastewater, public facilities, like libraries, fire stations, police stations, all of those types of things, park and recreation facilities, anything that is serving the district or the zone, I'm sorry, can become eligible through a process. It's not for our general operating expenses. It's not to pay for personnel. It's not to pay for those kind of things. It is for those infrastructure investments and capital projects that are needed to serve the residents within the zone. And so then you all, as the city council, created this by ordinance. You set up what the board structure was going to look like and set up a project plan, which we're going to go into in a minute. You also, at that time, the TERS board has 7 seats. The council appointed themselves to the first 5 seats and have 2 vacancies that we've had discussions about maybe appointing after the upcoming city elections. Once those are resolved, then appoint those last 2 seats. And then that would give you your full complement of 7 board members. By law, if other taxing units had participated, they would each get 1 seat of appointment as well. And that's a good reason to leave those 2, at least until you know for sure that the county or the school district or both aren't going to participate, because they would get to fill those other seats by appointment. And then there's an annual report that once we start moving on, the TERS administrator will help us with producing these annual reports of what is the increased value, what did that generate as an increment fund, and what are the reimbursements that are being made out of that if there are eligible projects that have already been submitted for reimbursement. And so kind of the way that flows, you have your finance plan, which ours to date is really a cash flow finance plan. It means as money comes in because of the growth, we will reimburse eligible projects and operational expenses of the zone. There are opportunities for public input. You all had a public hearing back when it was created, before it was created. You adopted an ordinance to create the zone. You seated the board by appointing the first members, adopted officially that project plan, and have now implemented it. Now we're down at that last step of implementing by having our first TERS agreement that will start generating value growth and the requirement for those annual reports. And so just that little side note at the bottom, it's important that we have these processes, that they're clearly spelled out, because the public needs to understand what we're doing with these tax dollars, why it was necessary to have this, and what's being funded. And it's keeping the ability for us not to increase our tax rate or increase our utility rates to fund this additional growth. It gives the opportunity for the developer to put it up front and to capture a reimbursement through the increment, the growth of the zone. And just as it says there, the common approach is for the developers to advance the funds for these public improvement and then get reimbursed from future tax increment, which is exactly what we have done. I think you would find, if you went through ours, the column on the left there, the good agreements contain a performance-based metrics. They are clear about what the eligible costs are. They are capped, they're phased, they align with the project plan, they're transparent, and they're designed to protect the city and keep projects deliverable. And I think with the one that we have before us, we would be able to put a check mark next to each one of those. We've gone through, and the TERS administrator has done a good job of making sure that we've put together all of those things and protected the city's interest, but also made that incentive available to foster the development that was desired. And it does include lists like what's on the right, the public improvements that are being built. Though they are in fact approved as a part of the project plan. The developer is the one who designs them. They convey them over to the city upon city inspection and acceptance. The city will accept them into a warranty period and then accept them for the life of the improvement, whether that's a street or a water or sewer line, whatever it is. Once it's built, city inspects it, assures that it was built to the proper standards, and then we accept it as a city asset. And then through the process, we reimburse the developer once the value is created. So the reimbursement cap is basically the maximum amount that is developed by that developer, or that is created, the growth that is created by the developer. Whatever that maximum value is, that money sits there in the TERS and is available to reimburse for those eligible projects. If the revenues arrive later than expected, then there's not a reimbursement to the developer until the value is put on the ground, the tax revenue is realized, and the funding is available. And so that it can get put off if the developer decided, after signing all of these agreements and going out there and building that infrastructure, for some reason they waited 5 years to start building houses, then they would wait 5 years until they would start getting reimbursed. It's fairly simple. Until the money is there, we are not obligated to put any city dollars out except for what is put into the TIF by the incremental increased value.
What about the funds that the city have already paid out there? Is it any way of getting that back, or that's just?
So those that you're talking about, the water well and things?
Yes.
Those are also eligible projects. The way we've structured it is we will allow the developer to go in. They will get reimbursed for their projects, and if there is funding after that, then the city could also could actually submit those same project costs for reimbursement through the TERS as well. Those serve the zone, they would be eligible infrastructure projects.
But that's the only money that the city would put up front on.
What has already been put up?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So as we mentioned at the onset, the benefits are it funds those infrastructure, it provides a mechanism to fund for infrastructure through private investment. It's pay as you go options that reduce pressures on us. It doesn't provide, just like the question you were just asking, Councilman. It doesn't require us to put the money up front. It allows developers to put the money, and then we are offering an opportunity for them to recover their investments over the course of time with the value that they're putting in our community. And it builds a long-term tax base, because then those homes that are here in our community become long-term taxable value that is a part of contributing to the community. So the considerations there on the right, it does talk about making sure that your value that is redirected to the TERS fund is not hindering your ability to provide city services. So I think doing a 50% TERS is a wise choice, because if you get beyond that, it gets very difficult for us to fund police protection, fire protection, other city services, animal control, code enforcement, all of those other city services that we employ personnel for. If we start growing our city and needing more of those services, but we've given all the tax revenue away for 30 years, it becomes really difficult for us to add city services. And so doing it as 50%, make sure that we've got some money coming in to fund those services, but we've got enough funding going out to help the developer get reimbursed as well. So I think that was a wise choice, and allows us to be in a good place to provide these services. And the reality is, when you get to the end of a TERS, 20, 30 years down the road after the growth is in, you really start to see an increase in city services demand, because that's when you start needing street maintenance. You know, the end of 20 years or 30 years, you start needing sidewalks to be replaced, streets to be replaced, and those kind of things. Well, that's about the time that your TERS is ending, and you're getting 100% of the tax revenue instead of 50% of it going over to the TERS fund. So that's again a good opportunity for us to be able to do the immediate costs now, and then in the future, a couple decades down the road, when the city service needs start increasing because of maintenance and upkeep, the TERS ends and you get 100% of the tax revenue. So it does talk there about governance, making sure that you've got good governance. And I think you all have been intimately involved in this from the beginning and are making sure that we've got clear plans. Sorry. We're making sure that the TERS administrator is going to be providing the reports for us. We're keeping them focused on that public benefit, making sure that the only thing that we're putting out there as eligible projects are those public infrastructure projects that are needed to foster the development and the growth. And so I think we've put those steps in place. So getting specific to the Navasota TERS, it was created in September of 2023. The project plan and financing plan document were both prepared in January of that year. You went through the process. You authorized the project cost categories total about $22.5 million in infrastructure and other projects. Your boundary is almost 3,000 acres of the city limits and extraterritorial jurisdiction. It goes from through December of 2052, so it was a 30-year plan, with 2053 being the final tax year. And just recently, as you all know, last month, you approved, as the TERS board, approved the first development agreement, and tonight that is on your agenda for consideration for the council. And the developer has signed it now, and so it is ready for, Once you all approve it, that will be a finalized agreement, and that one is fully executed. So the boundary there is on the right. Most of the area to the east of Highway 6 predominantly in our ETJ that is undeveloped is the area that your TERS covers. And so this is the first development that has come as a result of it, but my full expectation is that more will follow, that you have set something up that allows for a developer to come in and fund the infrastructure needs for their developments. And I think we are in a position that we will absolutely see those developers come. And so it did talk about availability of documentation and transparency. So this slide shows that if you go to the city website, you navigate from government to boards and commissions, the TERS board is listed there. You can find the final project plan, the financing plan, the boundary map that was just on the last slide, all meeting agendas and meeting packets that have been conducted by the TERS board, and that QR code there actually will take you directly to that TERS board page. So any residents that are interested can navigate right to it. And then again, we've got that TERS #1 landing page there at that QR code. You can go directly to it. And it's got all of that information right there. No one has to do an open records request to get it. It's all posted there. It's available for the public to see and to decipher and use however they would like. And so that's really the end of that. Same QR code there in case anyone didn't get it at the previous slide. And there's a link directly up there to the TERS board page. Again, that goes directly. QR code and that link are the same. And our development services director, Lupe Diostado, is also here, and he's available if residents had questions or someone else, or you all have a question, or like I said, representatives from Hawes Hill are here if you've got questions about their administrative services and our legal counsel. So I know I talked kind of fast. If any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or defer to the ones that were here when it was created if there's something that needs.
So, this terrible, is, only gonna get 50% of the city taxes, and the city, I'm sorry, the county and the school district is still gonna be 100% paid to.
That is correct. They, to my knowledge, they were not approached. I don't know that anyone went to them and said, would you all be interested in participating in this TERS that the city of Navasota is creating? I don't know if that occurred or not, but the ending result is our TERS was created with only the city of Navasota as the only participating taxing entity.
Mayor and Council, I do believe the county was approached. We actually did reserve 2 spots on the board in the event that the county decided to participate. But my understanding is, and I didn't speak directly with the county, but that they chose not to participate. So I do believe that contact was made.
Okay.
But I was not directly involved in those communications. But when the documents were prepared, we did reserve 2 spots for the county to have a representation on the board as well.
Mayor and Council, if y'all don't have any immediate questions, I was going to ask for the reps from Hawes Hill, just in case I missed anything or they have anything specific that they'd like to add to it, just as background. So, Nina, if y'all want to.
Just to echo, that is correct. The county was approached at that time and they decided not to. Does not mean that they could not in the future. That is something that's advantage of this tool, that they can still go back to that same base year if they decide, even 5 years down the road. And that's happened in many other places and cities where they do decide to. The ISD no longer participate. You'll see them in Texas where they're grandfathered in, or they were not grandfathered in, but basically they were allowed to years ago, so you'll see them tapering off now. They get basically penalized for participating, and so it is not to their advantage to do it anymore. So the ones that typically, it's your county, you can have, like, if you've got a hospital district or an emergency service district or a college district, they can participate as well. And those can be done at a later time. The only other thing that I was going to add is there wasn't a First Amendment that was in 2023 in which additional land was annexed into the zone, and that was related to that development agreement that you're going to consider later on today. It was annexing the remainder of their property into the zone so they could get the benefit of the full zone, and y'all would get the tax revenue for that full zone. But otherwise, great job covering it all.
No, thank you.
But happy to answer any other questions.
I do have one, I forgot what Senate bill it was, but, this subdivision goes in and 5 years down the line, we still have this Senate bill in effect. Someone want to file to get out of the ETJ? What happens?
Yeah, so that's that's different than your TERS though. I mean, so, because yes, that's,
So well, I guess what my question is, once you're in this turf, you can't get out.
yes, and when you're in the city limits now. So correct, for the properties that are in the ETJ that are not in the city limits, it doesn't impact you though, because you're not getting those tax revenues. But technically, someone in the ETJ, if they wanted to, but once they're in the city limits and you're getting those tax revenues, they cannot. So if it's in the ETJ, right now, you're not getting those revenues anyways. It was a tool for annexation at that time to encourage them to come into the city limits, but you're not getting those revenues right now until they come in. For example, the agreement that's coming in, they annexed. That was the only reason they got an agreement, is because they chose to voluntarily annex. And because it's really hard to annex, a city to go out and do annexation, that was just a tool at that time that the city could use to incentivize developers to come in and annex and get some form of reimbursement for infrastructure. But yes, a property that's in the ETJ, but it doesn't impact your TERS revenues because you're not getting anything from them right now.
I think we should consider maybe approaching the county again. It's a little time has passed. Anytime we can get the county to participate with us, I think it's a good thing, unless it's a real costly venture to do it, but that's just my take.
I certainly have no
They're
objection to approaching
benefiting
them.
from it quite a bit, so.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Go to item 4, discussion on how to interpret and understand monthly municipal court reports submitted for council approval.
Mayor and City Council, at the last council meeting, Councilman Harris requested a workshop on this particular item to better understand how the report reads. And our municipal court clerk is out today, so the judge has decided she would like to give that report to y'all.
Yes. Honorable Mayor and City Council, Mr. Heminger, Pat Gruner, Municipal Judge, Navasota Municipal Court. As Susie said, I'm here today because the court clerk, Rochelle Jesse, was previously scheduled to be off today. Mr. Heminger did clarify that the request was for assistance reading and understanding the Office of Court Administration monthly report submitted to the Texas Judiciary Council no later than 20 days following the end of the month reported. The court provides this information for transparency, but also being very careful to avoid violation of the separation of powers. The OCA report is public information available online through the Office of Court Administration. This form that you all have is used both for municipal and justice of the peace courts. In the state of Texas, it is used for 2,650 courts. The let's see, after the identifying information at the top, Navasota Municipal Court, the month and the year that the report covers, the first section is the criminal section. And you'll see number 1, that says total cases pending the first of the month. This number is both active and inactive cases. Active cases. These are cases that are awaiting a judgment that the court is able to move to disposition. They're not inactive. Inactive means the cases are awaiting final judgment. For instance, it's cases maybe where a warrant was issued, cases reported to Omni, to our collection agency, MBVA, and then you go down to number 2. Number 2 says new cases filed during the month. Those new cases come from Navasota Police citations. Eric turns in code violations, other things like that, but it's mostly from citations. Number 3 says cases reactivated. That is a case that has become inactive, and then let's just say 3 years later, somebody goes to get their driver's license, they can't get it because there's a hold on it from Omni. Come back over here to pay their warrant from 2 or 3 years ago to get that cleared up so that release will be lifted from that hold will be lifted from their driver's license and they can get it renewed. Anyway, it is, if people come in and pay an old warrant, another way that it's reactivated is if they're stopped and arrested on an old warrant. Maybe they go to jail and they have to sit out their fine. Then that inactive case gets reactivated. The next part says total of active cases, new cases filed, and reactivated cases. That makes total cases on the docket number 5. That's what it's just the sum of those different cases. Under dispositions, number 6, A, uncontested dispositions. That's where the defendant does not contest the charge. Perhaps they mail in their ticket and their payment, or they just make a guilty plea at the window, no contest, whatever they do, pay the fine. They never see me. They just want to get it taken care of. Those are called uncontested dispositions. The next part, B, dismissed by the prosecutor. There are different reasons. He reviews the case and he reviews the evidence. Perhaps the officer is no longer available, but that's his call and he dismisses those. Then they come to me for review and I sign off. I also may recommend dismissals, and in those cases, the prosecutor reviews it. And if he agrees with me, then he signs off. That's what dismissals are. Then you go down to number 7, final dispositions in open court or at trial. Disposed cases are those that have reached final resolution or judgment or a conclusion. That means that the judge has signed the final order. And once that judgment is signed, it is final. 8, compliance dismissals. This is where she has to report during that month when defendants are given the opportunity to resolve their ticket by taking a driving safety course. Maybe they haven't taken one in the last 365 days. They come before the judge. They have an opportunity, if it's a lesser case, to comply by taking a driving safety course, turning in that certificate, and to have that not be listed as a conviction on their driving record. Another compliance dismissal, deferred disposition, or perhaps they provided or proved that their liability insurance was in effect the day of the citation. Maybe they didn't have it in their car. Maybe it wasn't available on the phone. Maybe the officer ran it in the computer and it was inconclusive, whatever. But they have to go in. If they can't get that, we make them go back to their insurance company and provide a statement showing that they actually were insured at that date and at the time that the ticket was issued. And then there's others where they comply with state law, say by getting their registration renewed. Registration, they have a little time to go get it, to pay the late fee over at the county. They come back here, they show us that sheet that has that sticker that you put on your car windshield. And if that sheet has that they paid the $10.15 late fee, then that's exactly what we're looking for. We dismiss it for a $20 dismissal fee. Cases placed on inactive status. These are cases, again, that went to warrant status to the collection agency or to Omni or DPS to suspend their driver's license. Number 12, total cases pending at the end of the month is just the total of the active and inactive cases. 14 cases appealed. I believe most of these are the defendants that pled not guilty, either at the window or in my court, and they were referred. They have to go then to meet with the prosecutor on a morning when he's here. That's pre-trial, and perhaps they appealed his decision skipping the trial with our court. Normally, if they plead not guilty, we'll have a trial here. But if they choose to, they can just post a bond, go to appeal to county court. Civil section, that whole page, we do not deal with these. This is for the justices of the peace. That is their section. The next section is mostly for juveniles. I see a few juveniles, mostly for like tobacco and e-cigarette cases, not a lot. Then if you'll drop down to number 15, these are the cases. There are not very many of them, thank goodness, where I'm usually called out in the middle of the night to come down to City Hall to magistrate juveniles. These are usually for more severe cases, and I meet, the police have already, or dispatch has already called the juvenile probation officer who meets me here. They are trying to find a juvenile facility that will accept them, but before they're transported and released or released, they have to be magistrated by a judge, and so that's what that number represents. Arrest warrants issued, warrants for Class C misdemeanors is what that number is. Number 3, capious profines issued. A capious profine warrant is those defendants who came in and entered a plea of guilty or no contest, and then they defaulted on their agreement with the court. Or perhaps they struck a deal with the prosecutor at pretrial and they did not live up to what they signed that they would complete or do. And so those, when I see them at jail, that's the nickname for those is pay or stay, because that's what a capious profine, when I hear that, that's what that means. They have already come in, they've made their plea, they just didn't, they defaulted on whatever their agreement was. The last page is the financials, the fines, the court costs, other amounts collected, and then what's retained by the city and what is remitted to the state. I believe you will be able to get that from Mr. Heminger at your choosing. But I will tell you, when you look at these reports, always keep in mind that 1 month of data does not tell the whole story. The last one that you got was for the month of December, and December and January, or maybe it was January, but those 2 months are typically the lowest activity months of the year for courts all across the state. Holidays reduce the number of court days. Defendants are struggling to provide for their families, and often they prioritize Christmas over their payment of fines. It's not right, but you have to have a little understanding. Thank you for the opportunity to try to help you better understand this report. I learned a little bit as well having to do this. So I'm grateful to Rochelle. She does a fantastic job for you all and for the court. And as always, it's my honor to serve as municipal judge of the city of Navasota. Any questions?
Judge, I do have one. On the criminal section, And maybe, this may be a question for Kerry. New cases filed during the month, is that, I think I heard you said that's the tickets that the police
It can be
officers write?
tickets.
And
It
then
can
it's
be
the code
Eric's
violation?
code violations. Every now and then, the police will bring in a warrant for somebody that caused a disturbance somewhere in the city. And they come back and they write they write all their evidence. I'm blank on the form right now. There's a name for it. Probable cause statement. Thank you, Mike. A probable cause statement. It's a long detail of what happened. And a warrant can be issued. I sign that. Rochelle does the warrant form and brings it back, and I sign that. So there are different sources. These are the majority of them come from tickets. Yes, citations that are
I
written.
guess this may be for you here, Kerry.
Yes, sir.
About the violation, the code violation, is there any way that we can separate that?
It is separated, Councilmember Harris, if you, look at the top of the, page where it's broken down into
Got columns.
traffic versus non-traffic at the very top
number
of
is
that
that?
page. Right there, sir. And then those,
Okay.
those cases are further broken down into, for example, the city ordinance, violations, those would be the code violations that you're referring to. And so those would fall under the non-traffic misdemeanors. Also included in that, section would be penal code violations, that may be an assault, maybe possession of drug paraphernalia, things like that. And then the traffic misdemeanors are broken down into parking, non-parking, and then city ordinance, that would be something like a violation of the truck route ordinance, where we prevent the 18-wheelers from coming through town on certain streets. They have to follow a certain path. And if not, they're subject to a citation. So that would be a city ordinance violation falling under the traffic misdemeanor section. So when you see a report, there will be a breakdown of where the new cases fall within those categories.
Okay. So if you just said something that I guess I need to get some good clarification on.
Yes, sir.
If the police officer stopped an 18-wheeler for coming through town, that ticket is not a traffic ticket, it's a violation ticket.
It is
An ordinance.
Ordinance
It's an ordinance.
It's not a state law.
violation, but it's under state law. It's considered a moving violation. It's considered a traffic offense. For example, they're typically commercial driver's license holders, and a prosecutor, a court cannot approve a deferred disposition with a commercial driver's
Or
license
a driving
holder.
safety course.
So the state considers that to be a moving traffic violation, but it's also a city ordinance violation at the same time. So, but it would be a traffic offense, yes, sir.
Just want to know what I'm looking at.
I know.
Yes, sir.
So do I. Rochelle's the only one that really knows.
So just to add to what Mr. Harris was saying, a city ordinance, for example, if we were just concerned about a code violation, we wouldn't necessarily know that a city ordinance would be issued by the code officer, even if it was non-traffic, because you could have somebody could be issued a ticket for loud music that's at their house, which would be a city ordinance, but would not necessarily be a code enforcement citation, correct? So is there any way to break, I don't know if this is what he's asking or not, but that's where my head went.
I see.
The state doesn't ask that. It doesn't distinguish between the two. It just, I mean, you all can always go back and ask. If you see that the number is significant, but if you see it's 1 or 2 in a year, it may not even be, I mean, it's up to you. That's your call.
I agree with your point about there's no breakdown. It could be a building code violation, it could be a weedy lot violation, it could be a noise ordinance violation. So if that's something that you want to see, then, we would need to, maybe not necessarily on this form, but,
Right, that's what I'm
provide
saying.
that information to you separately, because obviously it's not broken down on here, but I'm sure that's information that we can provide to the council.
What
Should you desire that.
what I would like to see is, because budget time come, and if we're saying that we need another code enforcer, I'd like to know what the one that we have has been doing to warrant that we need another one.
Well, we do get code enforcement information on our Friday recap.
But that's true.
From
but it
Eric.
Don't go into detail.
No,
And I don't see those. What information, what level of information do you get when you get a report from the code
Yes,
enforcement
pictures
officer?
of letters have been sent to correct the,
People that he's gone to visit with, people that he's left things on the door, things like that. Usually, most of them haven't been turned over to court yet, but anyway.
And those would be more, building code violations, weedy lots, those kinds of things.
Yes.
Okay.
And just another question that I have for you, Judge. This form that you've provided to us, that you're showing all these things, this is not the form that we see in our,
It is the form. It's just a blank form that we got online to help you not be so confused. And maybe it confused it more. But I think if you'll take this information and go through the one you have, you should be able to match it up if you made notes on that blank one.
yeah, I understand.
It has to do with the way the pages are turned.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Because when I
that-
first saw that one, I went, no, this is not what I see.
Yes.
What you all see, mine's all written on, but you see the one, because there's so many columns, to make it legible for you, large enough, she has to turn it in order to give it to you all that way.
Okay, but she does fill out this form that you.
That is what she completes.
It is
In fact,
a
she does it
paper.
online. She doesn't even, it's not like she types it up. What I always want to know is, how does she keep up with all of this? She's amazing. A lot.
thank you, Judge.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Item 5 is executive session. City council shall meet in executive session as permitted by section 551.072 Texas Government Code. Deliberation regarding real property, discussion regarding the purchase, exchange, lease, and/or acquisition of real property for city purposes. Times 5:22.
Burn the two. That's all I got at the moment. That's all I got at the moment.
You're the one that wanted it out there and you don't even bring.
Well, I put it in a basket in the back.
Good item.
7.
Item 7, we reconvene in open session.
Didn't have the time, man.
Yes, 6:06 PM.
Thank you.
And with no further business, we will adjourn the